Hello, traders, warriors, which you have to be if you're in this business because the warriors don't quit your daydream. And to celebrate the super moon, which Margo has informed me is tomorrow, we have Astro Trader Margo Amala with us today. And I've been really excited for a few weeks to be able to talk to you, especially with all the history and unprecedented things that are happening in our world. And I always had a fascination with it. In fact, I've been called a lunar tick. Okay, because I follow full moons for years, and I've been met with skepticism when I talk about eclipses. But Margo, I've seen turning points in equinoxes and solstices and eclipses. So after I talk about it and then people see it happens, they start lifting up their head and looking at the sky. So it's really a pleasure to have you. And why don't we start off with a little bit about your journey, where you started into financial markets. And my question is, which came first, astrology or the markets?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I've been a student of esoteric studies my whole life. So I've always loved astrology, but I wouldn't have called myself an astrologer probably until about 2019.
Okay.
That's when I really kind of took the additional deep dive. And honestly, it was the markets that really took me deeper down that rabbit hole. I started trading the financial markets with the cryptocurrency, the big bull run in 2016, 2017.
Okay.
And that was what really got me interested. I really jumped into day trading and learned day trading. And then I discovered the correlation between astrology and the financial markets. And it was like suddenly the world opened up for me. And everything made so much more sense. And I fell in love with the epiphany because you get the instantaneous feedback on the charts
Yeah.
when you look at the real-time data and you see the patterns emerge, and it's undeniable. So that's kind of how my journey of merging the two things began.
I don't get religious on X, but too much. But the spirituality. I think whoever created this world and other worlds was a mathematician. What do you
Absolutely.
think? Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. I think, the deeper down this journey I go, the more I realize that it's all sacred mathematics.
Yeah.
And that honestly, even the tropical zodiac, which is essentially dividing, the sky that we see, for lack of a better, for a simple term, into 12 parts. But it's not actually divided based on the constellations, which is something we kind of perceive it is. It's actually just divided into 12 equal parts of 30 degrees, which is mathematical. It's
Right.
sacred mathematics, right?
Right.
And so that's ultimately why I think that's the foundation, one of the primary foundation of how it all works.
Okay. I'm known for trading a three drive to a top and bottom formation
Yeah.
that I accompany with divergences or confirmation with momentum. Is What can you tell me about the number three?
Oh, the number three. Well, the 369 pattern is, the represents the divine feminine ultimately. Um,
Okay.
and it's one of the core, I guess it's one of the core most powerful aspects in harmonics and numerology.
Okay.
And I think that it shows up literally, quite literally, everywhere.
Wow.
So
Okay. You mean three strikes, you're out, and we're the third planet from the sun, and the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and the third time's a charm. All of those. So, yeah, I always believed it was a number of completion, at least one number of completion.
well, the way I view it is that it's actually the one and the two, and then the three is the doorway to the 10,000 things, right?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of like the threshold that you walk through and then to the infinitesimal possibilities.
Okay. Well, I'm still at the threshold. I'll cross the Rubicon one day, but enough about my stuff. I'm really interested in sharing with our audience the esoteric things that you do and what you're looking at. We're going into an election. Um, you know, I also followed oppositions, and I was going to ask you if you believed in them, and then I saw a thread that on the supermoon tomorrow, you're actually tracking an opposition with a asteroid.
Um,
Is
with
that an
the
opposition?
Well, you mean like a planetary opposition, like 180-degree opposition between two planets or the
I
sun and the moon?
I know enough about Elliot and Astro and everything else to be dangerous. So, you tell me, uh, is
Well,
there some type of opposition tomorrow during the
yeah.
supermoon?
So the full moon is by definition the opposition of the sun and the moon. Uh,
Okay.
every full moon is the
See,
opposition of the
I'm an
sun.
amateur, so
That's okay.
I've already learned from you. So, why
Yep.
don't you share your screen now so we could take a look? And also, I watched one of your videos before I invited you, and see that you work with someone. I believe their company is called Time Trades. I'm assuming that is a program that uses a lot of Gantt stuff.
Yeah, so actually I would time trades has been instrumental in the development of my my capacity, my tool set, my strategy overall. Because the masters that came before us like Gann and I mean even Michael Jenkins who is like
Yeah,
still alive and with
I
us
know
today.
them.
But
Yeah,
okay. These people the time that it took them to apply the skill, the tools that they were learning, right, with the
right.
measurements of the planetary cycles and whatnot, was significant. To sit and do that by hand
By
would,
hand.
I mean, I can't even imagine how long that would take. And so I've
I
just,
can.
I feel like
You're too young. I used to update my charts by hand, Margo,
I,
and carry
I
around a chart book with me that would have coffee stains, or you'd be able to tell what restaurants I ate, a little ketchup here, a little spaghetti sauce there. So yeah, I mean, look, anyone who's masters anything is not lazy. And that includes trading. You cannot be lazy, and you almost don't even consider it work. You consider it a love of doing and investigating and seeking.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that's what keeps a lot of us coming back time and time again, right? Is the love for it, right? I love trading because it takes me deeper into myself and into my journey and into the understanding of the universe than, I mean, not anything, but just about anything. It's right up
Yeah.
there, the
Yeah,
top of
well,
it.
once you're a trader, it's like the mafia. You
Yeah,
can't leave, right? Or I'll quote an Eagles song, Hotel California. You could check out, but you
but you
can
can
never
never leave.
leave. You'll always be watching the markets once it's in your blood.
It's
So
true.
why don't we talk about what is in front of us
Yep.
and what you're seeing in different markets? I noticed you and I bought SQQQ the same day. I found
Oh,
out afterwards. So uh,
yep.
tell us
Yeah,
what you're seeing.
well, let's see. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ first. Oh, okay. So I'm just going to let everybody know that my charts load a little bit slow because I live out in the country. So sometimes there may be tools that are just going to pop up on here.
Okay.
um, but let's see. Let's get these fired up here. Um, I measure planetary cycles and movements using the time trade software. And the one of the primary tools that I use is called the ruler. And what this tool allows me to do is to anchor it to a moment in time. And I typically use major swing highs and swing lows of any trading instrument that I'm looking at. And then using various different techniques that I've learned over time, I push the different planetary cycles forward in harmonic measurements that are going to give me future swing highs and swing lows. And they're not always directional. I actually call them non-directional pivots because what they do is they just mark a change in trend. Sometimes you can find directional ones, but they're much harder to find than the non-directional ones. So I had been tracking on the NASDAQ. Here, actually, let's just go over here to the weekly chart so everybody can see this really well.
So we have a negative candle setting up here.
Yeah, we do have negative candle setting up here. Well, and this is key. This is a harmonic Jupiter GAN fan. And so I use GAN fans as well. And these GAN fans are really unique because they're one of the creations by Time Trades that it can be anchored to any moment in time. And then it's a real-time planetary GAN fan. So it actually moves with Jupiter, and you can so you set it. Yeah, you put a bunch of settings in there to get it right. So this is set to the different harmonics of 360 degrees. And so what happened is we're bumping into the harmonic resistance here. And this resistance line actually, here, let me quiet this other one so that everybody can see a little better. We're going to just look at Jupiter together. This Jupiter harmonic line actually goes all the way back to the low in 2020.
Okay, and so even astro traders look left. Okay.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
You got to look left, right?
Oh, my gosh. Look left is core of what I do. That's how I find the patterns, right?
Right.
So here we are. So we're bumping into this weekly change in trend harmonic here. So that gives me the time band of this week. And then we're bumping up against this resistance here. So that gives me my price level. So I feel like there was a high probability rejection at the price level here, which is, let's see, move this. I think I posted in my Discord that it was going to be anywhere between 25.38 and 27.50. And so we were looking on the NASDAQ, and I was looking at the NASDAQ because it's the weakest, right?
Yeah, I was just going to bring it. I've been pointing out, if you look at the July highs, the S&Ps have surpassed it by a ton.
Absolutely, yeah.
And NASDAQ hasn't gotten there yet.
Yep, 100%. And so the S&P.
So you look at relative strength too, which is not an astro. It's not an astro tool.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean,
all right.
Yeah, I learned trading and I learned astrology, and then I put them together. So.
Yeah, okay.
So
you have more arrows in your quill.
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Right. So on the S&P 500, this is actually a monthly ABCD pattern that I've been tracking. And it completes at 6108.
That's my target.
Is that your target? Okay.
Yeah. You know why? I mean, let's just collaborate because
let me hear.
The highs in 22 was 4,800.
Okay.
And the low was 35, so call it 1,200. Breakout at 4,800, tack on 1,200.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's perfect.
So that was months ago, and I traded counter trend. I like to hear the ice crack, and I also believe, like Paul Tudor Jones, the big money's made at the turns.
I agree. Yeah, that's definitely my strategy.
Okay, so that's interesting, and I'm looking for maybe 5% down in the S&Ps before we achieve that. What do you have? 6,000.
6108.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So if that were if that would match here, this is what I'm looking at here on the S&P. So that the ABCD pattern we have completing at 6108, although there's a weekly ABCD pattern that actually completes at 5925. So I've actually given a time or a price band of, I'd say between 59 and 6150, right?
For 2%, 1%. Yeah.
Yeah. And so particularly because we're during these volatile times of the election, right? But specifically, I'm looking for a pullback this week on the S&P. So this correlates. These are different measurements anchored to the same date, though. We are bumping into a weekly change of trend this week here. And then if you look on the S&P, we have another one actually that's not loading right here that comes up on the 28th. And then we have all of these. Do you see this cluster here?
Yeah,
Yeah, when they cluster together like this, they oftentimes end up being monthly or yeah, this is the weekly chart. So they end up going to the next higher time frame up. And sometimes they play out over a period of, it's volatile. It's a volatile top for several weeks, and then it's a change in trend. So like you
When
can see
does that begin? After the election?
yeah. So actually, yeah, the first one actually comes in November 11th.
Okay.
So right after the election. And then we get one every single week. And then into December, we have this cluster here on December 9th. And I actually have, if you want to hear some astrology, something really fascinating moments in December to look at. I was actually just about to make a YouTube video about it today, so I'll give the preview on it here if you guys want to see it.
Yeah, let's scoop your own channel.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is one of the techniques that I use is I take major, this is an astrology chart here. So, and this is actually 2 astrology charts. So on the inner wheel here is it's the high price in 1987, right before the crash. And this is where all the planets were at that moment in time. And on the outside wheel is December 13th, 2024. And so one of the techniques that I use is that I look for planetary returns within specific planetary cycles that correlate to prior major market events. And it has an incredibly high accuracy rate of giving us high probability, strong moves, typically in the same direction of the event that was going on that day. For example, the last time that this happened was on September 3rd. We had that was the return of the
29 crash.
The 29 crash, exactly.
That's a video I saw.
Yep, exactly. It happened, right. And so this year, because we're in the same specific Metonic lunar cycle of 1929, we saw a major down move on September 3rd. It didn't end up being the high, but we still saw a major down move, right? So it's like fractals. Everything is like a fractal of something else. It's that Mark Twain quote, right? Like history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Right. So at any rate, what we've got going on December 13th of 2024, oh, look at this. You know what? My chart didn't load to the exact right day. Well, that's unfortunate. Here,
12,
sorry
12.
about that, team. Yeah, we're going to go forward. I think it's, hold on. There it is.
12,
there
16,
it is.
12,
it's the
17.
17th. It's the 17th. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have the nodes of the moon returning to the exact same place they were at before the crash in 1987. So, but this is not the only thing. Then let's see if this loaded properly. So December 13th, maybe I just got them mixed up when I loaded the dates. So December 13th, we have the geocentric Jupiter return to the exact same place it was at on October 28th, 1929, which was the biggest down day in 1929. And what's fascinating about this is the 2 days that the yen carry trade came off in August.
Yeah.
That was Jupiter at this exact same degree as well. And now in this event, Jupiter, because the planets from our perspective here on Earth, they retrograde, meaning they'll pass back and forth over the same degree. So Jupiter is retrograde right now, and it's going to pass back over that same degree that it was at when the yen carry trade came off in August on December 13th. Okay. And then you combine all this with, this is kind of like this is the big one this is the first time I've shared this publicly. So this inner chart here is the chart of Pearl Harbor. And this outer chart here is the chart of December 7th, 2024. This is unprecedented, the amount of planetary returns that we're having on the solar return. Pearl Harbor happened on December 7th, 1941. So the sun will be returning to that exact same place. Mercury will be within 6 degrees of the Pearl Harbor Mercury. Venus and Pluto will be conjunct within 1 degree of the natal Pearl Harbor Pluto. Jupiter will be conjunct by degree Pearl Harbor Pluto. And Mars is stationing retrograde within 1 degree of the Pluto of Pearl Harbor. This is an astronomical amount of planetary returns and alignments with this chart. So to me, it just indicates that this is a time period that we really need to be watching for some unexpected events that may have a negative impact on the financial market.
Like war, Margo?
Yeah, like war, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about when you talk about wars. I know you talked about the asteroid. Are you a believer, like the ancients were, that comets are harbingers of famine and war?
I don't know if I would say I'm a believer of that. I mean, I'll tell you one of the interesting things that the deep dives of research that I went on to, which is not exactly about famine and war, but it's about health. And comets tend to bring viral outbreaks, which is really interesting. And there's kind of an astrobiology connection to it. But if you actually even look over the course of a year at the periods of time in which people tend to get sick, it's correlated to the periods of time around comets.
Interesting.
Which is very fascinating.
Was there one around during COVID?
There was, yeah, there was several.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and there's one asteroid that have you heard about the PT5 2020 or it's 2024 PT5 is this asteroid that's stuck in Earth's orbit right now?
With next where it looks like there are two moons?
Yeah.
Yes, I haven't seen it, but I heard about it.
Yeah, you can't see it with the naked eye or even with a regular telescope. You'd have to go to like an observatory to see it. But it's a very rare event.
Yeah, when has that happened ever before?
I looked it up and off top, I don't remember the exact date, but it's happened like once or twice before that we know of, but it's very rare. And the interesting part about this is I went to a website and tracked its closest approach to Earth because, in an orbit, orbits get closer and farther away, right? That's what creates the supermoon, actually, is the moon will be either closer to Earth or farther away. Right. And so the closest approach that this asteroid made to Earth so far was on August 8th, 2024, which was just a few days after the uncarry trade came off. And the next time it's making its next closest approach is January 9th to January 12th. So that is also an interesting time to keep our eyes on since it was correlated with the Dow move in August.
Okay. So pretty much sanguine until next year. And targets. Will targets be more important to you than your charts when it comes to your astronomical stuff? What's more important, price or what you're seeing in the stars?
That I view time and price like king and queen, right? I think that it's kind of dates back to all my esoteric studies. There's this concept of in yogic tradition that Shiva is the dynamic pool of consciousness and Shakti is the dynamic action upon it. And so I actually view time and price in that way, that time is kind of like the dynamic pool of consciousness that price then comes in and acts upon.
Okay,
right.
That's why Gann believed time was more important than price.
Yeah. So, and I think that they go hand in hand, but I think that, the edge that I've cultivated through time is unbelievable. But the way I do it is I read price action within a time window, right? So I give myself the certain time band and then I wait for the price action reversal in that time band. And that's what indicates my entries.
Okay. Speaking of reversals, I went through your stream and I saw TLT holding a breakout last week. It was my line at about 93.36 and it traded under it, but never closed under it. And I see that I saw that you have a load due on the 18th, which is next week.
So these are weekly pivots. So these give a 1 week time band. So the weekly pivot comes in on Monday, October 21st.
Okay.
And so the low could be in. I was a little because I actually hadn't loaded my TLT position yet because I was waiting. And I saw it yesterday and I was like, the low could be in, and then and then I
So
was
maybe
like,
you get a higher low on the date. Have you seen that happen where maybe it comes in early, but you
yes,
can still get a reaction to buy and be wrong under last week's low, something
yes,
like that.
exactly. And that there's nothing wrong with that, waiting for the confirmation. The other
Yeah.
thing I'm doing too is watching, on the, let's see if this will load in a reasonable amount of time. I use fibs a lot in my trading. So I'm watching the 382 retracement here, from the high of this, to potentially, because a trend is going to reverse at the 382 if it's going to keep trending. So we'd like to see this. If we're going to see bullish reversal, we'd really like to see this not reverse at the 3.382, right? But
Yeah.
the exact date so here's a good example. When I take these pivots down to the daily, do you see how there's several days on either side of them, right?
Right.
I do, however, also have these dates. I basically go to whatever time frame I'm looking at, and then I hone them into that time frame. So I also have daily reversals. I haven't calculated the daily reversals on TLT yet, though. So yeah.
All right. Why don't we talk about what's really making headlines? And it's not Bitcoin. Gold pushing to new historic highs. Some of the miners are trying to do the same. Are we
Yeah.
approaching any type of turn in the precious metals here, Margo?
So, my research on gold indicates that we are in. So, I use Venus intervals, and so with make that palatable for other people, it's like in the orbit of Venus going 360 degrees around the sun. We break it into segments, and each segment has a personality. And we're in Venus elongation interval 5, and the personality of number 5 is that it's a strong trending environment.
Okay.
The other personality of number 5 is that it does have a high correlation to changes in trend at 25% travel through the interval. And so these are my weekly turning points that I have here. But what I also do, which is pretty interesting, is I build analogs, and they're based on planetary cycles. So I take a prior moment in time that is correlated, because there are different planetary cycles that will repeat at different intervals of time. And then I take the price action from that period of time and I project it forward. And it gives me a really phenomenal degree of accuracy for the direction, not necessarily the tick for tick price movement, but the direction. Then here we go. So the one that we've been tracking so far right here, this is the gold analog that I've been using. And we have been really with precision moving in this analog. Now, what's interesting is that it's eclipse season. And what happens during eclipse season oftentimes is that we get a disruption. I mean, more than just oftentimes, 60 to 75%, we get a disruption of the existing planetary cycle, or an inversion before the end of it. And so what I'm aware of is, I had gold. I mean, gold has just blasted past all of the technical,
Yeah, they're
tops.
all-time highs. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's in blue sky breakout. So it's hard to and I'm super bullish gold, actually. But I guess the long short of it is that I'm looking for a primary cycle low to come in between November 4th and November 18th. And that, in my opinion, is most likely a low for buying up into December. The only alternative scenario in which that would not be the case would be if we were to get a complete cycle inversion here, which would have to play out by the end of eclipse season. Eclipse season ends on Friday, actually. So that would potentially, this is the alternative here. Although this is not my bias, but I've been tracking it.
Yeah, well, so great traders, and I'm talking about Peter Brandt. He's a legend.
Yeah,
I've talked to Peter,
yeah.
and he said good traders always look at both cases. They look at the bull and the bear case. That way they're aware, they have an open mind, in case things change. And, Gann said, who's the number one market timer of all time, most believe, who called a turn to the hour of a day in the wheat market, his maxim was, if you don't learn how to change your mind, you won't have any change left.
I know that's one of my favorite Gann quotes,
Yeah.
actually. I love it.
So here's a great market timer, and he's saying you have to be flexible.
Yeah, that's really, when I first started learning trading, I first started learning trading with the chart guys. And that's really how they teach, is they always have a bull and a bear case. And so that's really, that's kind of ingrained in what I do. But
So explain the alternate. It's your alternate view. It's not your preferred count.
Right. Yeah. So my alternate view would be that we would put in a high here during eclipse season. Potentially, we take one more shot up here for another all-time high, getting close to maybe 2,800, and then that would actually bring us down into December. But that is not necessarily my bias. But it is not been ruled out at this time.
Okay. Maybe a lot of that's going to have to do with the dollar. I've been a real big dollar bear till 2 weeks ago, and now I'm looking for Dixie to go to 106 before it finishes.
So this is really interesting. I've really been tracking the dollar with precision. So I have these weekly pivots with the dollar that are literally, I don't know, 95% hit rate. Wow. And typically they're within 1 week orb. This one actually that came in on August 26th, this one was tricky, right? Because it gave us this descending wedge, but we never really got anywhere. So
especially after the Fed cut, it didn't make any more downside progress.
Yep. And so I just kept watching week after week, lower low, no follow through, lower low, no follow through. I was like, we know the return is coming. And then I found this fascinating pattern, which is that here, this is also worth noting. I was going to show you, we've got a TD9 sell signal on the dollar right now.
DeMark?
Yep. Yeah. I use that indicator. It's not my sole tool, but I use it for support. So I'm actually looking for a short-term turn in the dollar. And because there is a very, very high directional correlation with Pluto stationing direct and pivot highs coming in. And so Pluto stationed direct last week. My price target for Pluto stationing direct was 103.11 to 103.33. And that's because every single time since Pluto, for the last 2 years, Pluto has been kind of retrograding back and forth into 0 degrees Aquarius as it makes its final push. And every time it does that, it does it at the $103 price level. So this was my price target here. We've reached the price target, and we now have a cluster, and clusters tend to be more powerful weekly harmonic measurements within 1 week of Pluto stationing direct. So I'm looking for a pivot high by next week. And then I think we just get some healthy consolidation into November 4th, and that should be a low that then we come back up. And I expect by November 19th for us to once again be at the 103 price zone, because that is the pattern of behavior.
What a great interview. I'm telling you, really outstanding. And, I really believe that people need to keep an open mind. I'm sure that my followers and people that watch this either live or recorded are going to want to continue to know what's going on in your head, Margo, and what you're seeing. So what's the best way for them to do so? Is it, do you have a website? I know you have a YouTube channel.
I do. I have a website, margoamala.com. I do personalized readings with people to help them craft their trading style to fit their natal chart. I also do individual sessions with people with this teaching astro trading. And then I also have a Discord that recently I just launched. And the Discord, I do weekly forecasts, and I put out my weekly newsletter. Biweekly newsletter. It's a biweekly newsletter with weekly forecasts. And I just in the last month or two have added an intraday trading room. And so I'm in there, and that's where I post some of my trades. I'm not in there 24/7, but it's been fun. I'm cultivating a really awesome little community of people who are just fantastic. So
Okay.
you can
Yeah,
find the link to that.
are you living in Oregon because you don't want be near major population centers? Because I'm pretty worried about I think Howe and his book The Fourth Turning
Mm-hmm.
has influenced me a bit, and people have always called me kind of the eternal bear. But I'm wondering if you're worried about what you see coming down in 2025 if you've looked out that far.
Yeah, I have looked out that far. I mean, I've looked out pretty far. Yeah, like all the way out to like 2035. I think, the three drives pattern that you mentioned, I think that I have a Dow Jones three drives pattern that starts in 1929 and completes in it's got a 2 or 3 year orb on it, but it completes in 2035. So that's going to be a huge moment. But in the next 5 years, I think we're in for a wild ride. Honestly, I mean, are you familiar with Philip J. Anderson's 18-year real estate cycle?
No.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah, you should look
Okay.
into that. He wrote a book called The Secret History of Real Estate and Banking. It's really a worthy read.
Okay.
But the real estate cycle comes due low. If we're calculating low to low, the last low was in 2009 of the financial markets correlated to that.
Right.
So, 2027 to 2029. And so what I'm anticipating is that we see the markets come off here, either Q4 this year or Q1 next year, I think is the highest probability time. And then I think we see another push up before a bigger downturn that will happen.
Okay. Are you
High coming in probably 2026.
negative real estate based upon this
Um,
cycle?
Actually, I think we get one more push up in real estate because Jupiter is going to ingress Cancer next year.
Okay.
In like May. I don't have the exact date off the top of my head, but May or early June. And usually there's a very high correlation with highs in the real estate market with Jupiter and Cancer because Cancer rules the home. And so I'm kind of looking for one more push up in real estate. And that's actually something I've got my eye on when the markets do come off here in the interim. I'd like to buy maybe Vanguard Real Estate REITs
Okay.
for next year.
Okay. That's sounds like it's going to be a good environment for bonds,
Yeah.
if that's what you're talking about. And so safety trades, gold,
Yes.
bonds, right?
Yep.
Um, okay. Well, I think we've covered so much ground, Margo. I want to thank you and your giving spirit for
Yeah.
because
Thank you so much for having me. This has been
yeah,
fun.
I know you work hard, or you wouldn't have all these answers, and I appreciate hard work. You know how people say, "I'll sell you the secret to trading,"
Uh-huh.
and I say there is no secret. The secret is there is no secret. It's hard work and living through adversity. And if that scares you, do something else.
I totally agree. I 100% agree, particularly in the world of timing and GAN.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of this kind of chasing the unicorn idea that nobody wants to kind of tell you what the secrets are, the things that they've figured out or learned are,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
I actually I want to bring a little more transparency than that to the world. That's what I'm doing here. So
Okay. What a great mission. I'm rooting for you. You're now my trading warrior sister.
thank you, Dale. Yes,
All
you too,
right. All right.
brother.
All right. Margo Amala, everybody. Find her on X. Go to her website and open yourself up to a universe of another major tool that you could use to integrate. As you could see, Margo knows classical technical analysis, and she has a new weapon that she's been using for about 5 years. So check her out. And thank you again, Margo. Enjoyed
Thanks,
it.
Dale. Talk to you
All right.
soon.
That's a wrap, everyone. This will be on video, and I know you're going to want to watch it again. So remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. Adios, everybody, and thank you, Margo.